Hello, welcome back to another pen talk. Thank you very much for joining me as I explore the amazing, incredible, diverse, historical wide world of pens. And I'm doing this video because I happen to have these three pens. They were new in box. I acquired them various ways, but I think they're very representative of fountain pens that were readily available in the 90s and the 2000s. They have a lot of things in common and a lot of differences. Cross, Parker, and Sheaffer. Three names that have been associated with excellent fountain pens for many, many decades, maybe centuries. So sit back, enjoy my in-depth review of these three writing instruments, and maybe you can appreciate why I felt it was worth doing a video showing you these pens to continue to educate and give people a perspective of the fountain pen world. So you might ask me what pens have I been using day to day on my desk that I use in most of my letters. Well, here's a few, and I use that term liberally, that I write with regularly. This one here is number one in the list. As you can see, there's a great variety of colors and shapes and designs. You know, this Noveler Eclipse has been a very dependable writer for me. The two Asvine V800s, the Mahjong P140, the Noveler Voyager, and Asvine C2000, the Mayfair Nodeler, I try to pronounce it correctly, and two of these Genli 930s with the great number 9 nibs. And my pen friends enjoy looking at them also. So you may ask, why do I have these three pens here? A Sheaffer, a Cross, and a Parker. Yeah, three names that were synonymous with U.S. pen makers, but these pens have only seen the shores of the United States when they are in for sale. But they all have one thing in common. They're all Stylo Plume. And you can see here, Stylo Plume, and something underneath it there. And if we look at this one, we'll also see Stylo Plume. So what does Stylo Plume mean? Well, I'm certain those of us with a French knowledge knows it means fountain pen. And these are three fountain pens. So we're going to take a look at the designs, talk a little bit about the history. My pen friends are looking on. They're saying, tell me more, tell me more. And these are all from a similar time frame in the 2000s, maybe 2010, maybe late 2010s, but certainly a period of time which many are not really saying is the best golden age of fountain pens, but these three do work well. They were affordable in their day, well packaged, and hopefully got people into using fountain pens. So before I undo this packaging, just want to take a look at it in an order. I was a packaging engineer for a decent amount of time. So this is definitely designed to hang from a tree. That would be on a display case or something of that nature. So definitely retail packaging. This was actually bought as one of those swap gifts in a corporate environment that I was in for a very long time. And they knew I was into fountain pens, so this is what they got for me. So the Cross is packaging that kind of bridges between the Parker and the Sheaffer. You can hang it from a tree. Here's a little piece that you take up and then you can hang it. But it's kind of a big and clumsy package compared to the Parker. But it's also a more giftable package. You know, kind of would say that I didn't just pick this up at random off of some tree in the department store. So the Sheaffer is definitely gift boxable, and definitely something that would be from a stationery store. You know, it's just nicely done. Nice hinged cap. Nice logo there. Nice silver embossing. Yes, the nicer of the packaging of these 3 pens. So these 3 pens have a lot of similarities and a lot of differences. So the first similarity is they're all metal pens with black lacquer on it, except my eyes see purple here in the cross, so that makes it stand out amongst these other 2 pens. Your classic black and gold, your classic black and silver tone. So, to me, the Sheaffer is the most classic design. That white dot is prevalent in a lot of places. A nice engraving on the cap band. Doesn't tell you the brand name, but it certainly lets you know it's a Sheaffer. All the pens are smooth in the hand because of that enamel coating over a metal base. The cap has a nice secure feel to it. And as we look, we'll see a nib I don't think Sheaffer's used very much. It's a medium nib. It's the plastic feet on the other side. The grip section has some indents on it, so it tells you where your fingers are, but it doesn't restrict your fingers. That's what's nice. There's no step up there. It's an okay length in the hand. And as we would think, it posts fine, deep. Doesn't change the balance much at all. So then we move on to the Parker. Plain finial there at the top, kind of dominating that design. The classic arrow clip. And it also has some nice engraving in the cap band. Wow, there's a date code. I'm impressed. We'll give you that date translation. This cap also pops off. Not quite as substantial as the Sheaffer, but pretty close. And we'll see a Parker nib. A small Parker nib with a small feed. I think this is also a medium nib too. Metal section, but not slippery, and no step up. And it fits just as well as the Sheaffer did in the hand. None of these pens are extremely heavy. They just have a good weight to it. And this one also posts securely. The cap is heavier than the Sheaffer cap, so it bat wakes the pen a little bit, but to me, it wouldn't interfere with writing. So moving on, we come to the cross. And yes, that is a purplish color. Has a similar substantial finial there at the top of the cap. There's a cross in that clip. Just a plain design clip. And here in the band, there's no identification. And a nice big finial, metal finial at the end of the barrel. This one also is extremely secure. Push to cap. Yes, it's the strongest of the 3. And this one also has a more traditional nib. It's a cross. It could be a fine. It says M for medium, so that's nice that they've labeled it, because it's a small tipping material there. And the classic plastic feet on the other side. This pen also sits okay in the hand lengthwise, but that section is really tiny. It's the smallest of the group. It's that shiny metal surface, but it's not slippery. And as we would expect from the design and all the other pens, posts deep and secure. It posts deeper than any of the other pens, but the cap is also a little bit weighty, not as much as the Parker, but certainly not as light as the Sheaffer one. That small section would get to me after time. So posted there, not much different in overall length, but the Parker is the longest, and I said that's the most back-weighted version posted. It's 3 different design approaches to pens, and all the designs I would call in the classic variety, no extremes here. Let's zoom in on that section in nib. So I would say all three of these have small nibs, with the cross being the largest and I think most decorated of these three nibs. The Parker is the smallest nib, and the Sheaffer is more traditional, just not quite as long as the one on the cross. As I said, this section is very small. It all slopes down towards the nib end. There's a little bit of a flare there at the end. This is my least favorite section of the group. The Parker is second. Again, this section is long, so you get to move your fingers around. This is about the same length as the cross, but the cross is a little bit bigger. There's no step up on either of these that would bother you. And this one has a classic conical section with a little flare out there at the end near the nib. And this one also is a similar design, different flare out. But, you know, this is a metal surface, and this is more of a tactile surface here. So the real key is when we put some ink in them, how that nib works. The Sheaffer also comes with a nice thick booklet that has lots of useful information in it, covering all their different brands in many languages. So something to keep in mind that makes it more of a giftable, higher end item. So another difference between the pens is the Sheaffer and Cross came with converters, which I think is excellent for a lower end pen. And if we take off the sections, we'll see some of the differences. The Cross converter is threaded. That's pretty interesting. And the ends are totally different between these two pens. That Sheaffer has that very small opening, not much that larger in the Cross. But popular at this time frame where the barrel of the converter is colored. I have no idea why they did that. It should be clear so you can see the ink color, and not have the barrel interfere with that. Nice metal ring here at the base of both of these, and this has a little bit of corrosion on it on the Cross. In my experience, Cross converters have been a little bit wonky over time, and I think Sheaffers have held up better. And look how much longer that Cross converter is than the Sheaffer. So the Sheaffer came with two cartridges in addition to the converter. Yes, a blue and a black one, indicated by the end. And as you can see, almost half of the ink has evaporated. And you may say, aren't these cartridges sealed? And yes, they are, but the seal is not totally impenetrable. And water does evaporate. I don't have any cartridges where water hasn't evaporated. These are 20 plus years old, so they're going to evaporate a little bit. And as we can look at the Parker cartridge, we'll also see a similar amount of evaporation. Quite common. Some people get concerned about it, but it's the nature of the beast. These are not completely sealed, impervious to evaporation. So here are the caps. All of them have a plastic liner in there, metal caps that are friction fit. So that plastic liner allows them to fit well to the section. The Parker one there on the left is not a complete plastic liner. It's open there. You can see that metal at the top of the cap finial. Also similar in the Sheaffer model, same type of thing. Sorry, in the Cross, that's the Cross one there in the middle with the white liner. And the Sheaffer one also is a similar design, but it appears the top of the cap, that liner seals it up. So you would think that Sheaffer would hold the ink nib wetter over time. I have to be a confessional mode now. When I blew into the cap of this Parker IM, air just flew out. Where the other two pens, it kept the air pressure inside. And after setting overnight, the nib required a little bit of help to write, where the other two pens wrote right away. So I have to say that this makes this pen not one that I would recommend. Parker may have changed that sealing mechanism of the cap over time, since this is an older model, probably 20 to 30 years old. For those of you that have a Parker IM, let me know whether you have a issue with the nib drying out in just a day or two. Let me know. So I think the million-dollar question is, where were these pens made? Well, both the Sheaffer and the Parker admit to being made in China. I can't find any indication on the cross-packaging as to where the pen was made, but I think it was made in China also, because Cross has been known for making pens in China for a while. Their Providence manufacturing facility has been long gone. But think about this. These American pen makers, well, at least originally they were, now they're in France, moved pen manufacturing into China to be able to benefit from lower cost manufacturing. And I think that stimulated and started what we now see 20, 30 years later as the evolution of pen making in China. Now they're making unique, interesting pens. You saw a lot of them in my pens in use in the beginning. So, as usual, you can trace back a lot of things to their origins, and I think these three pens are indicative of that. American pen makers from France started the Chinese pen evolution. So I deliberately wrote these in this particular order based on how much I like the nib. The Sheaffer Prelude is definitely a fine to extra fine nib. Lays down the least amount of ink of these three pens. But although it was initially a little bit scratchy when I first started writing with it, it's broken in very well. And it's been smooth on most of my recent writings. So, you know, if you like an extra fine nib and you don't mind a small section, thin section, then that might be a pen that you'd be interested in. The Parker IM, I think, is really in the fine category as far as nib size goes. It's a little smoother than the Prelude, and it certainly, as you can see, lays down a lot more ink in many levels. You know, the line is darker. So this is a good example of same ink, same paper, just a different pen. And here we have the Cross Beverly, which just glides across the paper, just a minimal amount of feedback, lays down a nice heavy line. Certainly I would not call this a fine nib. As you can see, it lays down a lot of ink. So overall, it's difficult to pick a winner amongst these three pens. Each of them have their own advantages and disadvantages. It really comes down to personal preference, maybe price. So here are the pens where I wrote on Tomoe River paper, and the nibs are consistent. The Prelude is your extra fine, your IM is your fine, and the Beverly is more towards a medium, if not more. Consistent flow works well on Tomoe River paper, as well as all the other papers I've written on. So I would be hard-pressed to say that one of these pens is a clear winner in this group. As I mentioned earlier, they all have their advantages and disadvantages. From a nib perspective, the Cross Beverly is my favorite, hands down, no questions asked. It hits it out of the ballpark. The Pilot IM is a good in-between nib, but I just find the balance of this pen to not be correct. These heavy metal bits at each end, especially when you post it, just doesn't work well for me. The Sheaffer has a great balance to it. Even though all these three pens weigh almost identically the same weight, they feel all three different in the hand from a weight perspective. So that's a real challenge. If you're going to buy a pen based on just the weight, that you look at some pictures and you don't have a chance to feel it in your hand, who knows what it's going to be like when you do get the pen in your hand. And that's the tough part about doing a pen review, is trying to show you, explain to you how these pens feel so you can make a decision. I did some research as to what is available on these three designs. Obviously, the Parker IM is still being made. Some slight changes to it. Cap band's a little bit different, but it still has those metal ends. The Cross is a little bit more difficult to find, and the Sheaffer also, but they're available on the used market, eBay, Peyton Street Pens, other places that you might look at if you're in the mood and you want to get one of these pens to try for yourself. Well, that reaches the end of this review. I hope it found everybody safe, healthy, and happy, enjoying your pens, enjoying your inks, enjoying using your pens to deposit some ink on a surface, maybe doodle, maybe sketch, maybe write a letter, maybe journal. Whatever you want to do, use your pens. That's what they're there for. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for watching. We reached a conclusion, and we will say bye-bye-bye-bye.